Clara woke up with a tense body. The air in the room was thick, humid, laden with a metallic smell reminiscent of blood and earth. Each shadow stretched along the walls, like dark hands trying to grasp her neck. The silence was so heavy it felt physically weighty. Her footsteps echoed in the wooden corridor. Each creak of the floor seemed to whisper ancient secrets, memories she did not want to recall. The wind that entered through the window made the curtains move like ghosts, dancing to the sound of a past that was coming back to haunt her. The childhood room was intact, except for an open notebook on the floor. Clara approached, sensing the smell of mold mixed with old ink. Distorted drawings stared back at her, black, empty eyes that seemed to follow her every movement, begging her to revisit buried memories. The pages trembled under her hands, as if they were breathing. Childish voices mingled with threatening murmurs in her mind. Each stroke in the notebook was a fragment of pain, a story her mind had buried, now emerging with almost physical force, pressing against her chest. Climbing to the attic, the air turned cold. Dust floated in the beams of light, each particle seeming to carry echoes of distant screams. Among stacked boxes, a small wooden box seemed to pulse. Clara felt invisible fingers brush against her skin, a silent warning. Opening the box, old photographs stared back at her. Unknown faces, pleading eyes, mouths slightly open in silent screams. Each image was an open wound, fragments of a childhood marked by fear, now demanding attention and recognition from Clara, who could barely breathe. A whisper cut through the air. "You shouldn't be here." Clara shuddered. The voice had no body but reverberated in her bones. The attic stairs seemed to stretch infinitely, creating a physical and mental labyrinth, each step increasing the weight of fear, regret, and anxiety. Memories surged like flashes, overlapping images of muffled screams, locked doors, and eyes watching her. Each fragment cruelly fit together, revealing traumas she believed she had forgotten. The past became present, almost tangible, breathing, pushing her to confront. Clara fell to her knees, the photographs slipping from her hands. The floor pulsed beneath her, cold and firm, as if it wanted to trap her. Invisible sensations coursed through her skin, memories of old pain. Each ghostly touch seemed to penetrate her flesh, reminding her that her trauma was still alive, active. A metallic snap made her teeth clench. An old keychain spun on the ceiling by itself, reflecting the dim light in patterns that danced across the walls. The house was not just a setting. It was an organism, breathing and reacting, feeding on her fear and the fragments of memory that insisted on returning. She turned to look behind her, but nothing was there. The feeling of being watched intensified, almost suffocating. The shadows formed familiar and unfamiliar faces, blending memories and nightmares. Every corner seemed alive, breathing, growing and twisting, a labyrinth of terror built within Clara's own mind. Hallways changed direction. Doors led to other, unknown rooms. Each new space revealed another painful memory, another abandonment, another cry for help from the past. Clara screamed, but her voice was lost in the heavy air, transformed into an echo of memories, mocking her attempt to escape. At the end of the corridor, a wall covered in old photos. Each gaze carried pleading and pain, living fragments of the past. Clara felt the overwhelming weight, a pressure almost physical on her shoulders. She was surrounded by her own story, forced to confront every trauma she had tried to hide. The doors were never locked. Since moving into the old mansion, Clara felt something strange. Each corridor echoed footsteps that were not her own. At night, the wind seemed to whisper secrets, and the doors creaked even without a breeze. A premonition left her uneasy, as if someone were watching her. The first incident happened in the kitchen. Clara believed she was alone, but she saw a chair move by itself. The pantry door swayed slowly. She tried to ignore it, but the chill creeping up her neck wouldn't let her be at ease. The feeling of being followed grew stronger. In the attic, she found furniture covered with white sheets. Each sheet seemed to hide motionless figures. One of them fell with a crash, and Clara swore she heard a breath behind her. She turned quickly, but only found shadows dancing on the walls. The doors were never locked, and that made her uncomfortable. Each opening seemed to invite something unknown. The sound of footsteps behind her in the corridor made her heart race. Sometimes, doors she hadn't opened were ajar, as if waiting for someone. One night, Clara woke up to whispers. She followed the sound to the study, but there was no one there. However, one of the drawers was open, and inside lay an old diary. Its pages were filled with handwriting she didn't recognize, telling stories of missing residents. The visits were always unusual. Whenever friends came over, they complained of a feeling of oppression. Some said they heard faint laughter. Others swore they had seen figures on the stairs. Clara tried to smile, but the mansion seemed to have a mind of its own, shaping each person's perception. She decided to investigate the house's history. She discovered old records of disappearances. All previous tenants had left abruptly, claiming that the house doesn't want us to stay. The always open doors were mentioned in every account, almost as if they were portals. One night, Clara heard the jingling of keys. She followed the sound to the basement. The keys turned by themselves in the door, but there was no visible lock. A cold sensation took over her body, and a distant voice whispered her name. She recoiled, but the door suddenly opened, inviting her inside. Downstairs, she found a room lit by old candles. The air was heavy, and shadows twisted on the walls. A smell of damp earth and something else, undefined, filled the space. In the center, a chair seemed to occupy a commanding position, as if waiting for her. Clara noticed marks on the floor. Footprints that were not hers led to a wall, disappearing mysteriously. Each mark seemed fresh, as if made at that very moment. The silence around her made her heart pulse with fear and curiosity at the same time. In another corridor, doors opened by themselves. Each room had displaced objects: chairs, books, stop clocks. She tried to lock a door, but the doorknob turned by itself, revealing the emptiness of the room. The mansion seemed to move, reorganizing itself according to its own unknown rules. For days, Clara began to feel constant presences. The sound of quick footsteps behind her, doors gently slamming, unintelligible whispers. She wrote everything down, trying to find logic, but each record only heightened the feeling that something was inside the house, watching every gesture. On a rainy night, Clara heard music. A piano played by itself in the hall. She approached and noticed that the doors around her opened and closed to the rhythm of the melody. The music seemed to invade her mind, telling stories of pain and despair from past residents. She tried to leave, but the corridors shifted. Each open door led to a different room than expected. It was as if the house had a memory of its own, recalling every movement and reacting to it. Reality seemed distorted, and panic began to take over her. At the peak of her fear, Clara noticed a detail. She had never locked a door, but all seemed to guard something. The mansion was testing her, demanding courage and attention. Each opening was an invitation or a warning. The shadows whispered, "What is not locked watches you."